Okay, welcome everyone. It's just about 7 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. This is Active Claremont's presentation of the candidate forum for the Claremont Unified School District School Board. So thanks everyone for showing up tonight. Obviously this is an important process in our town of Claremont here, and whenever we can engage the public to be more involved in our local government, it makes a difference. So we appreciate everybody being here tonight. If you're not familiar with Active Claremont, we are an organization that is apolitical, and we focus on volunteerism in the community and also making people like yourselves aware of local events like this. We are a very small organization, and we're funded completely by the dues of membership. We have some information out front in a trifold if you're interested in joining. We would love to have you as a member. And it's the best deal in town. It's like $10 a year for individual membership, so it's hard to beat that.
Are you saying we're cheap?
I'm not saying that, Brian. I'm saying we're affordable. Yes. One quick reminder, if you could please silence your cell phones or put them on vibrate. We do have a couple of recordings going on. We just want to make sure that we don't interrupt our candidates or the recordings with any types of distractions. Thank you for that. This will be there will be an opening statement, and then all the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question. We will kind of rotate where we start questions. So the first question, we'll start with Kathryn, and the next Steven, and so on and so forth. They'll all have an opportunity to go first and last. And then there will be a closing statement as well. And I have to say this, but please no cheering, applauding, jeering, booing at any time for any of the candidates. If you just please respect that, we'd appreciate it. So I'm gonna go down the list. I'll introduce each candidate. So in District 1, Kathryn Dunn, District 4, Steven Llanusa, District 4, Peterson, and District 3, Richard O'Neill. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with a question. In case you missed your opportunity, we do have note cards up front. Please write your question on the note card. They'll bring it up to me, and we'll do our best to get through every question. We have already about 5 or 6 questions, so we'll just try to get through as many as we can. Brian.
3 minutes opening, 2 minutes
Correct.
on the question.
Correct, 2 minutes on the question.
3 minutes at the end.
Correct. Thank you, sir. So without any further ado, we will just get right into opening statements. I'll pass the mic down, and like I said, we'll have 3 minutes on the clock. Brian, are you ready to go? Brian's ready to go. Here you go, Kathryn.
Hi, I'm Kathryn Dunn. I am a lifelong Claremonter, and also I was a former editor of the Claremont Courier newspaper for 20 plus years. And the reason I ran, I guess, largely because no one else was running, I'll be honest. I live in the village. I'm right there on the edge of District 1, and it was brought to my attention that there were no candidates. So that, I think, is an issue, and an issue for the community that we need to address. I'm shocked at how easy it was to become a board member. I filled out a form, and then I became the board member. So that, to me, is a little bit terrifying. It's not very good for democracy, but I'm happy to take it on. And as I said in some other writings that have been going around, I promise to be fair and to be prepared and to listen to people from all political ideologies. I want to give back to CUSD because they have given so much to my family. My son's just graduated a few years ago, and I feel like there's a huge debt. So in that way, I can help repay it.
Hi, I'm Steven Llanusa, candidate for Area 4. I'm honored to be supported and endorsed by so many members of the Claremont community. And the reason I'm running is because right now there are 2 board members who are in their first term. There will be at least 2 new board members who have not served yet at all. So I think it's important that there at least be 1 board member on the school board with some historical experience. And that's one of the reasons I am running for the school board. I'm also running because I believe in the direction the school board is going. We are doing a strategic plan right now, which will be setting our direction for the next 5 years. And I think it's important that we have people on the school board who know the issues. I've been very involved as a local resident for the past 26 years. I've been on the PFA at both at Condit and El Roble and Claremont High School. I've been a classroom teacher for 35 years. So I know firsthand how what happens in the boardroom affects what happens in the classroom. But besides my local involvement, through being on the school board, I've also been active in the state of California. I've been a member of the California School Board Association Delegate Assembly. That is the statewide body that takes input from school districts across the state. I've also been going to Sacramento as an education lobbyist, that is the liaison from the California School Board. Even during COVID, I participated remotely. I've also been involved with national participation. I'm a member of the National School Boards Association, and I've also been part of the Coast to Coast lobbying effort that brought school board members from the Pacific Coast of California to the Atlantic Coast for Washington, D.C. All of these experiences make me uniquely qualified to be the school board representative for Area 4. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Aaron, and I'm running for Area 4. I am not a Claremonter. I am lucky and blessed to have married a Claremonter. My wife went through the Claremont School District. Currently have 3 kids attending Condit. We moved here in 2019, and throughout the process of the last few years, many of them tumultuous, got a little more of a cemented feeling into the city and the community. I was like, you know, this is our last house. This is the place where we want to raise our kids. And so it was, you know, how can we be more involved? How can I step up? How can I start helping my kids in their future in this town? And school board position came up, and it's like, you know, I can do that. That's something that I can serve for, not for myself, but for my kids and for everyone's kids, because as we all move forward, they're going to eventually have to take care of us. And so it's best if we invest properly in them and their future. And so that's my vision, and it's really about the kids and education, because we've all been blessed to have been there and done that. And so it's time for us to turn around and give it back to them so that they can move forward.
Good evening, I'm Richard O'Neill. This is the first time I've run for school board, you may know that. I want to first of all thank Active Claremont for organizing the forum, and now a little bit of biographical. My wife Marilyn and I have lived here for 45 years, and I came for the grad school, but we stayed for the public schools, the trees, and the civic culture. And by the way, today is our 48th anniversary.
Oh.
And you're here?
All 4 of our children went to CUSD schools, including Vista, Sycamore, Condit, where they received excellent foundations for learning. One of our granddaughters now is a kindergartner in Mountain View. I believe my eclectic knowledge base can be an asset to the CUSD board. For example, I have an ROP certificate, right, as a printer. I have an MBA from Claremont Graduate University that was capped by a semester in Japan, studying the human resources practices of Sony Corporation in Tokyo. I also did a stint as a headhunter in the Silicon Valley, and was the president of a small HR consulting firm. I also then got a Master in Education from UCLA, which was capped by a year-long sabbatical from CUSD, doing spade work for what is now the local control funding formula, reporting to the Schwarzenegger people, who, by the way, is tone deaf when it comes to education. I was also the president of the local teachers union. Now, as a trustee, I expect to help forging budgets, which will prove demanding if a recession is on us. I want to help as I can address employee shortages and to help make online learning more effective to the extent this is possible. I want to help implement our emerging equity strategies, and longer term, I want to help CUSD develop its competitive brand because that's really crucial to our cash flow. And finally, to help forge creative strategies to meet young folks where they are at, including kids who are now enculturated in Minecraft or Roblox, and to prevail finally in the struggle for student attention over against the business models of social media. And finally, let me also say, I need to become involved with building a more comprehensive sustainability effort here at Claremont Unified School District. As a high school teacher, I saw things go flat time and again, but it's time to make that change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. So with opening statements out of the way, we are going to jump right into the first question. And again, I just want to remind everyone, these questions are generated by the audience. We're going to try to get through every question that we can. Looks like we'll have about an hour or so for questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question in whatever way they would like. So, the very first question, and this will start with Kathryn and we'll go down the line. Are you in favor of having a school resource officer at Claremont High School? If not, why? 2 minutes.
This is a difficult question to answer because personally, our experience with the SRO was fantastic. She gave high fives to my son in special ed. He had autism, he loved it. My other son, typically developing, got into a little bit of trouble socially, and she handled it with care and class, and so our personal experience was very good. So yes, me as a parent, absolutely. But as a board member, that's a completely different way of thinking. I mean, we have to listen to the community. I think the process we went through was slightly flawed. I would have liked to hear from more students, a wider survey. I think that it ended up being a situation where perhaps 20 to 25 kids who were really organized and really bright and really on top of it were able to have a huge impact on the outcome of that. So I do like the fact that we are using a community group to help make decisions and set some guidelines for the SRO. But it really is up to the community. So I think my job as a board member would be to get more information from the community and make decisions based on that.
I'm in favor of an SRO, plain and simple. And the reason I'm in favor of an SRO is because our staff want it. Our teachers have overwhelmingly expressed interest in maintaining the SRO and have publicly said so at the school board meeting. Parents want it. In our LCAP surveys that go to both students and families, parents who said they want their children to feel safe at our school. In comments, they've said that the student resource officer is one of the ways they feel that their children are safe. The students are split, and that makes it difficult because when we need to listen to the students, it's difficult to do when students are telling us different things. The group of 25 students have been very vocal, and the school district has met with them. Assistant Superintendent of Education, Julia Lesnovich, when she was interim superintendent, met with those students and gave them an opportunity to address the school board. And when those students were asked how the SRO could be improved, even within that group, there was a diversity of opinions. Some thought the officer didn't need to carry a gun. Some thought the officer didn't need to dress in a police uniform and could dress in a more approachable, casual way. And then there were some students who were determined to defund or get rid of the SRO. So it's an issue that's very difficult. And it's not been made any easier by the city council, who have unilaterally listened to the recommendation from a 5-person committee, of which they appointed the majority of 3. There was another option that they could have picked, which was developed by city staff and school district staff. That option was not considered. So I'm hoping that the city council and the school board will work collaboratively going forward to improve the SRO.
I am in favor of the SRO personally. I believe that we've all been witness to a rise, not a decline, in the reason why police presence is necessary on school campuses or around school campuses. I do agree with some of the open community discussion that has happened about it, that it's, there are strong voices on all sides of the issue. But I believe that somewhere in that middle ground is part of those discussions that did happen that Steven mentioned, is that, and I believe the Courier said it was, let's focus more on the resource part of the job, because as has been stated, teachers enjoy having them there, students enjoy having them there. They are a resource as a human being. Let's not lose that resource. Let's try and reframe the issue, because I think we're in a position where we can't simply say no SRO, because there is still an issue that nationally needs to be handled with violence in schools. That's not gone away. That's why we still have SROs. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been in favor of the SRO since I was a member of the planning committee at the high school 20 years ago. I was one of the people who voted to bring it to Claremont High. It's because I'm old and paranoid, I guess. But also, Claremont High is an open campus. There are like 9 different egresses there, so it's really vulnerable. And I've been through drills that are simply chaotic, right? Where everybody crowds into this classroom or that classroom. And I guess people don't feel safe. They would feel more safe, I believe, if the SRO themselves were more deeply engaged in dialogue. I know some of these kids are legitimately intimidated by it. And I think the SRO and those kids need to have an extended dialogue. Otherwise, I'm foursquare for it.
Okay, thanks for the answers. We're gonna move on to the second question, and as a reminder, this will start with Steven. We'll answer first. Okay, so the next question from an audience member. Are you in favor of the district sale of the La Puerta land as it currently sits in escrow, all 20 acres, including the sports park? And I'll read that one more time because it is kind of long. Are you in favor of the district sale of the La Puerta land as it currently sits in escrow and all 20 acres, including the sports park? Steven, you can go ahead and kick us off.
Well, I agree with the sale of the La Puerta Park that is being used for houses, but the question includes a half-truth. The entire 20 acres is not being sold. Half of it is being sold for housing. And the boogeyman that it's all going to be sold is just conspiracy theory nonsense. So just to establish the fact, half of it will be sold for housing, the other half will be maintained as a sports park, regardless of what you hear. There is no one on the school board that is in favor of selling all of it. We value the whole child, including athletic activities. So we have no intention of taking one of our premier sports parks and selling it for housing. But I am in favor of selling the other half because we do need the money. It's not just that we're entering a recession. As in all districts across the state, we are suffering from declining enrollment. Education is funded by the number of students that are in the schools. When there are fewer students in the schools, the state gives us fewer resources. So we need the assets and the money that the sale of La Puerta will make for our students. You'll hear a lot of objections about selling La Puerta because some people think it's going to ruin that neighborhood. It's not. It's the housing development that happens throughout Claremont. And for a vocal minority to stand in the way of a sale that will benefit all of our families and students is not something I can endorse.
I moved here right when this started to kick off, and so I really had to spin up on this issue. I believe, and then some citizens of Claremont really helped me understand from a historical perspective that we have gotten ourselves into a situation that we've had before with the Padua Sports Complex. The city put out the proposal, just as we did with the Laporta project, and there was the back and forth, and the replanning and rehazing and all this stuff, and it wasted time and it wasted money. And now we have soccer fields that after a rain are a small lake. We don't have all the amenities that would have made it a higher tier sports complex for the region. We're doing the same thing with Laporta. The school does need the money. California needs the square footage for housing. This isn't we can't not do it. Something has to happen, but stonewalling the project's not gonna help anybody. And at one point, I believe there was a plan in which the Trumark was gonna actually spend some extra dollars and improve the park and improve Kahia. We were gonna get the sale of the money, but we were also gonna get some improvements of our sports complex facilities, which now we may have to now pay for that. So it's more of this, the community needs to understand, this isn't a yes or no, it's a we are doing it, but how can we do it best to serve the community and the schools? Because California's got a housing crisis, we gotta solve it, but let's solve it together so we can move forward.
Instinctually or natively, I'm always suspicious of selling capital assets, particularly to fund operating expenses. But this place has been sitting fallow since forever, and our operating needs are always going up. So I'm unambiguously in favor of selling. Whatever the best deal is, good luck to us all.
Do I get to answer?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the district should be allowed to sell any property that they own. And as long as we are still serving our students, which I believe we have the capacity to do that with the schools that we currently have, yes, they should be able to sell it.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go on to question number 3. We received 2 questions that were kind of similar, so I'm gonna do my best to sort of combine them into one cohesive question. It is a little bit long, so I might read it twice so that everybody has a clear understanding. This question will start with Aaron. The city is in the process of final planning for the development of the Larkin Place Permanent Supportive Housing Project, just 2 blocks from El Roble Intermediate and Mountain View Elementary School. The plan is to house persons who are chronically homeless, mentally ill, and have drug and alcohol addiction disorders. It is well documented that this population is known for refusing treatment and have long criminal histories. As a parent, I want to know what your thoughts are about this project and how, as a school board member, you will protect and guarantee the safety of the students from this high-risk population. The second portion, a little bit more straightforward. Do you support the Larkin Place chronic homeless development a half block from El Roble? If yes, why? And if no, why? And if you need me to repeat the question, let me know. And Aaron, I'm gonna pass the mic to you, and you can get us started.
You want to repeat? Oh, okay, I think I got it. So this is one that I actually haven't dug into until very recently, because it was indirectly associated with school districts only by its physical proximity. But again, we're a city, we're a community. Little decisions and big decisions can affect us all. The question itself kind of points out the issue. And I think it comes down to a matter of safety. Looking at other districts, I want to say the city of LA or county of LA has made some ruling in regards to the distance in which homeless encampments can be from public schools, simply because it's very obvious in some homeless encampments, it is an open drug pit. It's been documented, it's known, it's out there, okay? Not saying it's exactly the same thing as what Larkin is trying to be, but we have to look at it from the perspective of, okay, well, if it's a recovery facility where we can temporarily house people, then are we holding them to a standard? Are we holding them to a requirement? Are we holding them to any metric that's actually gonna keep them in the program so that they are motivated to move on, to move back into society? Or is this just a, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope everything goes okay? Because if we're doing that right next to two schools, okay, well, what does that tell the kids as they're walking by this place? What does that tell parents in regards to the safety of their kids walking to school? I think safety is a factor, and I've had a couple conversations that was, well, okay, if the project wants to move forward, somebody do a safety study, and let's find out what, let's get some experts in here to analyze it and say, this is the risk. What is our risk? Can it be mitigated, or is it something we can't touch?
Well thought through. My response here is, again, very visceral. My wife and I walk past it every morning, sometimes twice a day. From the very beginning, the thought occurs, who would most benefit from living in a situation like that? We default to the children living in a car, or to senior citizens who need that protection, that help, and the others then, the people who are mentally challenged, who have a debilitating drug problem. Before Ronald Reagan, the state took care of those people. So is that punting the ball down the field? Yeah, but I still stick by it. Also, I make a note, I just read this yesterday, the city of Los Angeles has a 500-foot limit to nursery schools. And there's the Baptist straight across diagonally. Thank
you. Yes and no. I support Larkin Place. My issue with Larkin Place is that we're going outside of the community and bringing people in who are in need. We already have over 200 families at CUSD who are homeless. We have seniors who are at risk of losing their home. They live in Claremont, or they're renting and the rents are skyrocketing. We have adults with disabilities who are living with their parents endlessly because there's no place for them to go and live. When we talk about supportive housing, I just think that there are a lot of other vulnerable populations that are already invested in Claremont. Or janitors at the school district, people who work at the Claremont colleges, people working in cafeterias at our senior homes. There are people who have already become very attached to Claremont, and they're very involved in Claremont life. And I would like to see Claremont residents be offered a place to live first, so. Oh, sorry.
It happened to you. So Larkin Place is a very difficult decision because it has worthy goals, but it may have unintended consequences. I know through being an active Kiwanian for the past 12 years that when we do community service, we have served facilities with unhoused people. And we know that it can work because these are supervised facilities. There has been talk that the Larkin Place will have requirements for the people who live there, requirements such as drug testing, therapy, drug counseling. I don't know if it will work, but I'm willing to consider it. I do like the idea of a safety survey to make sure that what happens at Larkin Park will be safe for everyone. And as Kathryn mentioned, we have unhoused families in our school district. A lot of people don't realize that. They don't realize that we have Title I schools because it has such a large population of at-risk or at-need families. So the idea that Larkin Place might serve some of these families is very encouraging to me.
Thank you. And as just a quick reminder, we have a couple questions left in the queue. If anybody has a question they would like to have asked, you can go ahead to the front, submit it on a note card, and we can ask that. So on to our next question, and this is going to start with Richard. A growing number of Americans are living in poverty, often because they never learned the financial budgeting, dangers of credit card debt, how to save and invest money, or basic contract law. Many students come from impoverished families where their parents or guardians never learned this basic knowledge, and so poverty breeds more poverty. How can Claremont Unified School District provide this essential knowledge to its students to break this poverty cycle?
Well, this one is right in my bailiwick. I've been teaching personal finance at the high school, which has been innovated in the last few years. I also got 5 certificates from something called the Next Generation Personal Finance from up in Palo Alto. We teach it in the math department, but it can just as well be taught in the psychology department. Fundamentally, it's about behavior. You can teach all the algorithms, you can teach them how to do research, but ultimately, when you're marketed so aggressively to use that credit card, right? And there's every trick in the book, and the internet is loaded with it. You gotta teach kids how to think, how to prize their own opportunities, right? Because they will get plundered. That's just the way the system is going right now.
Yeah, I would, I know back in my day, in the 80s, we did take these sorts of classes at Claremont High School. I'll be honest, I don't know what they're doing now as far as the curriculum at CHS in terms of teaching kids how to manage money and be responsible, and I'm learning from you that there is some of that going on, so that's positive. The scary thing for me is the idea that the schools are gonna fix everything, because I think that it is a larger community issue as well. I'm hoping that kids are getting some experience from family members that maybe it isn't all so grim. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that really, how we're gonna solve poverty with kids.
So this question talks about financial budgeting and getting people out of poverty. But what the subtext is the difference between instant gratification and long-term benefits. Because that is exactly what budgets do. I teach at an elementary school that has PBIS. So parents know that is initials. That stands for Positive Behavioral Intervention Strategies. And students earn reward points, and they can use those reward points to buy prizes. Some students spend those points as soon as they get them. They get lots of little trinkets. Some students save those points to buy the bigger prizes that they want and think will be more enjoyable. So just that everyday, real life, authentic budgeting experience can help them understand later budgeting when they get to Richard O'Neill's class on financial management.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're next.
I think you guys have already covered quite a bit of it. Maybe I'll just rehash it a little bit differently. Money is about responsibility. Mismanagement of money has consequences. It can be having your water shut off, your electricity shut off, kicked out of your house, loss of rent. There's so many things that can go wrong very easily. It's actually hard to be good at it. It is a good habit to be financially sound. You have to work on it every paycheck. For kids getting out of high school, they've been in mom and dad's house, they've had things paid for. Are they going out into the real world? Now everything's responsible. All the responsibilities are on their shoulders. Are we weaning them into the world? It is an educational foundation, but it's also a community thing. It's a parent thing. Personally, I graduated high school, and a few weeks later, I was in basic training in South Carolina. I didn't actually see money in my paycheck for 5 weeks because there's nothing but vendors lined up every Sunday to sell things to the new privates who have a new paycheck, but they don't have an understanding of saving money. So everyone is spending because, we have money. Oh, well, no, actually you don't, because you just bought a bunch of stuff that you probably aren't going to keep. And we are having that. It's a cultural thing. We go places, my kids, I want this, I want that. Okay, do you have money for it? Did you save your birthday money? Did you save the dollar I gave you. We have to teach them instant gratification versus long-term investment.
Okay, and so we're back at the beginning here, and this is actually our last question of the evening, unless someone scurries and brings me another one. And so we'll start. This will be for Kathryn, and this is kind of more of a sort of a big picture idea. What do you think is the biggest obstacle facing Claremont Unified School District? How would you attack or address that issue? What do you think is the biggest obstacle facing Claremont Unified School District, and how would you attack or address that issue?
Well, I'm a biggest issue or biggest challenge? I mean, how,
Either or.
you know what I'm
Either or,
saying?
yes.
Biggest issue. I'm not coming from a place that CUSD is broken and I'm gonna come in and fix it. And I think that the district is really strong. I think that our schools are strong, the kids are performing well. I think that families are generally happy. So when I hear things like, what is the biggest issue? It sort of seems like they're looking for someone to come in and fix something. But I don't necessarily think it's broken. Are there tweaks? Are there things we can do better, communicate better? Sure. There's always room for improvement in a lot of ways, but I couldn't even identify what I guess the biggest challenge would be funding. I think will continue to be a challenge for the school. And when they try to sell a surplus property to earn money, and it's stopped, and then they try to pass a bond measure, and people say, why another bond measure? I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. So I do think that that will continue to be an ongoing issue for the schools.
Well, I was also gonna say funding, so now I'll have to think of something else to say.
It's probably the biggest.
Another challenge that CUSD has is addressing inequity in our educational opportunities. We had a district advisory committee on diversity, inclusion, and equity, and that committee developed recommendations that were presented to the school board. Some of them are implemented already, some of them are being analyzed, and we have an ongoing committee, because the district advisory committee usually meets for a limited amount of time on a specific focus. We now have an Equity Diversity Council, which is made up of representatives from all the schools, students, staff, and parents, looking at these issues. And some of the long-term goals, which are challenges, is to have a staff that is representative of the student body, or at the very least, sensitive to the student body. And we can't just change our staff overnight. There'll be retirements, there'll be people moving out of the district, and we replace those. And we can replace those with a lens towards equity. But of course, the most important issue is teachers that will serve our children. Serving our students, people have different opinions of how that can be done, which is why I'm glad we have an involved community and experts helping us do that. Thank you.
I actually wanted to get some stats in front of me because I'm very much a stats guy. For the unaware, I do want to, and I've said this before, I don't want to come in and say, you're doing it all wrong, we need to change it. Claremont is ranked 649 out of 11,000 plus school districts in the country. We're not doing anything terribly. We have A's in academics, diversity, teachers, college prep, B's in clubs, activities, administration, sports, and food. The only C we have is resources and facilities. It's Claremont. It is an older, established town. We do have older buildings that require some maintenance now and then. We can't just build new buildings all the time. So we'll give that some a grain of salt with that one. So it's not coming in saying, let's wipe it and start over. We're already doing fantastic. I do want to look at some things, and this is not necessarily that Claremont's not doing well enough. It could be that the metric in which California holds us to is inefficient. And there's been significant changes. There's significant changes coming, whether they're going through boards, we do have a very high graduation percentage, 94, 99%. That's outstanding. But when we go back to California state test scores, 50% of students are at least proficient in math, 64% in reading. That doesn't mean that students are bad at math or that they're bad at reading. It means perhaps the metric is not good enough, but it could also mean the other. We should always be striving to move forward. That's how we work in our jobs. You don't get an entry-level job and keep it forever. You work to do the next best thing to get to that next level. And I think we always need to say, where can we give the students that opportunity to take it to the next level, individually or as a whole class?
Merci beaucoup.
Hi, what's the matter? What's the biggest ordeal facing CUSD? I take a long-term perspective and I focus a lot on technology. I'm a classroom teacher, most especially, and retired, by the way, with a higher salary bracket, which works well for the district. But the disruptions that are coming down, they're only hinted at by the COVID crisis, right? There's online learning, there's the changing role of teachers when so much is done technologically, including, by the way, the incipient AI application, right? What do we need teachers to do? How do we need them to think and react, yeah? Not to get too far in this, but the metaverse is a marketing term, right? Like G5, right? 5th generation, right? But there's something really behind it, and I've been studying this pretty carefully. It's coming down and it's gonna change our fundamental approach to classroom teaching and to schooling. You know, I'm an old guy, so what impact can I have? Well, I can at least sound the clarion, right? And there's other people who would agree with me. It's a really difficult situation, very demanding. It's complex in the mathematical sense complex. So, but it doesn't mean it's because we're uncomfortable with it, it's not gonna go away. That, to me, is the biggest obstacle.
Okay, we had a couple more questions get submitted. I have about 4 more, but we'll have to see what time does for us. So this next question, we're going to start with Steven. A little bit of a longer question, so I may read it twice if you need me to. So this question from the audience member states, I believe the primary purpose of an education is to learn how to provide for yourself and your family, if applicable. As an experienced employer, I advocate, quote, hiring for attitude and training for experience, quote. 2 things that I cannot afford to teach an employee is, number 1, work ethic, and number 2, to get along with others. If either of these traits are missing, regardless of intelligence or level of education, the candidate will not be hired. What is, or should, the Claremont Unified School District be doing to provide employers like me with candidates possessing these 2 essential traits?
So that question addresses something called soft skills. And those are things that employers are looking for because they're important. They're not measured on a test, they're not graded on a report card, but they're definitely part of the whole child. And I'm proud to say that our district was one of the first districts to have as a goal addressing the whole child. Nowadays, you can't go to a district and not hear them mention the whole child, because our students are more than just the snapshot of that one day in May when they take the test. In terms of work ethic, I think it comes down to school district and school expectations. I know there are schools that don't give homework, and that would be a lot easier for me as a classroom teacher because I wouldn't have to make those assignments, I wouldn't have to grade those assignments, I wouldn't have to collect those assignments, I wouldn't have to nag parents because their students aren't doing those assignments. But that does not build a work ethic. I call parents from my cell phone and let the child hear me tell them, your son has missed 3 homework assignments, or your daughter did not come in the morning for tutoring and help that she needed to do these homework assignments. Because that's how you establish a work ethic. Give them valid, authentic work, expect it to be completed, and give them the tools to finish it. In terms of getting along with others, our district has had a long history of Kagan strategies, which involves cooperative learning and collaborative learning in groups. Group projects where every member of the team has a role that they have to fill. And as a person who also employs Kagan strategies in my classroom, one of my toughest jobs is making teams that balance academic achievement, social skills, and the ability to work with others. And then expecting that they will work with others. Thank you.
Yeah, I got the same too. Go ahead. When it gets to the stop, then my alarm goes off.
I think probably the biggest thing personally that I learned for developing work ethic outside the military, because you don't have a choice, you have to learn the work ethic. It becomes very painful if you decide not to. In college, I went to the University of Phoenix at the physical campus, not online, but we had assignments in which throughout the course, it was varied in how we were doing our work. It is individual work, it is large group work, it's the entire class, it's small group work. So they're putting you in constant situations where you're fluctuating how you have to complete the assignment, whether it's next week's assignment or that quarter's assignment. And so it was this constant shift that kept you on your toes on what had to be done, how you had to prepare for it, and you had to plan. You couldn't slack off. So the work kept you on your toes, ready to keep going. And Steven's mentioned some of that stuff where, that's why teachers assign homework. Hey, you learned something in class today. We all learned something, we did it in class. Now go home and show me you know how to do it by yourself. Don't ask your mom and dad. Refresh what you did, learn it yourself, turn it in. Same thing, longer coursework where, hey, here's a larger project. We're gonna give you time in class to work on it together. Large group, small group. Put kids in situations educationally where it's like work. They're gonna get out of school and they're gonna work. Why not simulate that as best as possible? Make it fun. Because when kids are having fun, time flies and they don't even realize what they're learning, but they'll do it. So I think we can research and employ strategies that can benefit the children to make work-ready kids, whether they go directly into the workforce, college, military, taking over a job at mom and pop shop, wherever they go, we are giving them that additional tool outside of just reading, writing, and arithmetic.
In my capacity as a teacher of personal finance, one of the things that was very apparent is a lot of this stuff is automated, right? Your paycheck is calculated, everything is broken out, here's your budget done automatically. Adding and subtracting, the math part of it is not, can be assumed away because of technology and automation. Consequently, I quite consciously turned to teaching soft skills in the last few years of my teaching. And just because, I'll put it this way. We teach them to do small talk, to talk to strangers, to be in a grocery line and turn and talk to that person next to you who mostly they'll be shocked, but that's fundamental. That we have to do that because technology is not going to do it. Technology is going to take away our jobs. When you fly into Ontario Airport, right, there's a sea of warehouses and they're chock full of jobs, right? And the truck bays are uncountable. Those are going to be automated. So people, in order to keep their lives together, are going to need to understand how to work with other people. We can do that. Thank you.
I have a degree in public administration. I am not an educator. And so for me, I could give advice all over about being a mom and getting kids to work hard, but the last thing I would ever do as a board member is try to tell a teacher how to teach or to get overly involved in curriculum decisions. I think as a board member, my role would be to support what our experts are telling us, and we do have experts in our district. So I intend to take that approach.
And it looks like we're gonna have time for probably one more question, and then we'll go to closing statements. It's our seventh question, and we'll start with Aaron, go around. What is your level of concern regarding the students at San Antonio High School being so close and exposed to the human trafficking issues happening in South Claremont? How would you plan to protect those students? So what is your level of concern regarding the students at San Antonio High School being so close and exposed to the human trafficking happening in South Claremont, and how would you protect them?
Okay, so that's a tough one. My only familiarity with San Antonio is listening to Claremont Speaks podcast. There's two teachers on there that were talking with Russ. Up front, I totally appreciate what they're doing down there. And I do agree that we do need to protect them. This kind of question was brought up at the city council forum that we had here, and it was addressed several different ways. And I mean, this is going outside of school board, it's associated, but it's back to the safety of kids. But in that same vein, it's human trafficking, regardless of the fundamental reason it's being done, whether it is sex trafficking, legitimate slavery, whatever you want to call it, is universally unacceptable. We have rules against it, we have laws against it, we have enforcement against it. And I think we need to back our police, we need to back our community in order to ensure that we're not letting that happen here. We need to address it, we can't pretend it's not happening. We know about it, it's documented. We need to come together and we need to work together to address it in order to protect the community and the school.
My level of concern is quite high. Having been out of the country for a few months now, I was not really tuned into what was going on other than what I could pick up in the Courier. I don't have an easy solution other than the adults have to step up. The adults have to solve the problem. These students they're already, at risk at San Antonio. And there's so many who work through it and are successful. But if this is an issue, we've got to get a concerted effort to address it from the adult world. This means, police, whomever. Follow me? And I know it's people involved in human trafficking are victims themselves. It's a real difficult one.
This is definitely a police issue, 100%. So, and I know the PD is working very hard to start to put some things into place. Things CUSD can do, is the campus closed? Do they have security? These are the kinds of questions we want to ask about San Antonio. I know the students have a lot of freedom, they're in and out, they have different schedules. Is there a route we can encourage them to take that might go up college and take Arrow? I don't know. Are there more practical things we can do to advise the kids to sort of avoid the area? But unfortunately, this is a police issue. So the district needs to work cooperatively with the police and try and get things moving along as fast as possible. Oh, sorry.
I did it myself.
It went out of order.
As has been said, this is a two-pronged issue. The first is the societal issue of the human trafficking, and that is within the jurisdiction of the city. And the city and the school board have a great partnership, but we also have our lanes. So I'm not going to dictate to the city how they need to run their police to take care of this social problem. But I am going to tell you what happens at San Antonio that makes me know that those students are being cared for by the adults that are there. San Antonio High School is a community. It has small classes and dedicated staff. It was the first continuation high school to set up a sports program for other continuation high schools in our area. So I don't think that will protect them from all the human trafficking, but it gives them another opportunity to be involved on campus and to be someplace that's safe.
Thank you, candidates, for the answer to all those questions. So at this time, we're gonna move to closing statements, and we'll start at the end with Richard, and he'll begin the closing statements. We'll work back towards me. So I'll go ahead and pass that.
All right, this is summative here. I'm gonna read, forgive me. The challenges near and long term will require imagination and focused hard work. I can bring that. Trustees matter. They are the backstop to a school district's policies and caretakers of its core values. I expect to learn more about these processes as I learn from my fellow board members. There is nothing more important in the lives of young people who are our future than a meaningful and engaging education. There's nothing more essential to the cohesion of a community than its schools. We all know this. Claremont has a unique civic culture that will continue to meet our challenges and continue to build great schools. I want to continue to be part of it. Thank you.
Wanted to actually revisit. I'm a long thinker. I'm not a quick thinker. I'm not a submariner. I don't have instant replies. So I did want to revisit real quickly back to Alberta sale. The only thing I would change is for the school board to be very specific about the funding. I don't think that large of a sale should be something that goes into the general fund. It should be dedicated money to very specific things so that the public has an awareness of where that money's going. Towards the obstacles facing CUSD, California, and this includes CUSD, have the nation's highest teacher-to-student ratio. We're in the 20s and upwards of 30s. The national average is 14.5 to 1. When students have a better teacher-to-student ratio, they have more time with that teacher when they have issues, when they have questions, when they're really digging into material. So it is a tough question to say, how can we lower that ratio without spending too much money, but I think it's worth investing somehow into improving that student-teacher ratio. And for a little bit of levity, towards work ethic, did visit Alaska, and fishing captain did bring up the issue with kids even graduating high school right now. The season had only been open a couple weeks, and he'd already fired 3 deckhands because 17-year-olds don't want to work. You have to work. We have to teach them work ethic. They can't go out into the world and expect to be as successful as their parents unless we instill that work ethic. One more, and many people have heard this word, and oftentimes it is an incomplete word, equity. We need to ensure that we're using equity of opportunity, because we do have a rough past in this country, and we do need to give students the tools and the understanding that it's our job to enable them to have the things that they need so that they can be on the same playing field as all the other students. If a student has a need, we need to meet that need. We cannot go down a pathway of equity of outcome. That's totally different. We have to understand where we're going. If we are forcing an outcome upon somebody, that's not okay. That's not American. To have the equality that we have codified in our laws, sometimes we do have to give a little attention to somebody else. And it is our duty to do that so that we can actually say we are all equal.
Thank you for this chance for closing comments, so I can add to things that I ran out of time to say or focus on things that I forgot to mention. Addressing the San Antonio High School issue, I was so proud of the sports program, I forgot to mention that the SRO on San Antonio High School is another opportunity to keep those students safe. And regarding the SRO, there's a great debate about whether they should defund the SRO or defend the SRO. I like the middle ground of define the SRO, which is something I think the city and the school board can do by working together. Richard talked about COVID. I'm surprised there was no question about it because it has had such a huge impact on our students and on our teaching. And not just in terms of student achievement, which we know is harmed, but also in terms of data collection. We've lost 2 years without measuring how and what our students have learned. The school program for student improvement for the past 2 years have not had disaggregated data based on social economic status, English learner status, or racial status. Not having that data makes it very hard for us to know where we are succeeding and where we need to succeed. And regarding equity of outcome versus equity of opportunity, they are both important. To say that we don't need to worry about equity of outcome would be like me saying, I taught the students, but they didn't learn. The outcome is the learning. And if that's not happening, then the opportunities don't matter. Outcomes do.
The success of our district lays solely on our teachers. That's basically where we're at. That is my position. If our teachers aren't happy, if they aren't wanting to stay, if they are feeling unappreciated or undervalued, then that's going to reflect with our kids. So for me, that's number one, being on the board, making sure that our teachers have everything that they need so that they can get into the classroom and create, teach these wonderful little kids that will become adults. And a lot of them will stay in Claremont. So and it's not that far off, 10 years, 12 years, we'll have these little kids that will now be adults in our community. So we definitely want our curriculum and our teaching and our teachers to have positive influence on our kids and that it reflects our values, our community values. As I said earlier, I don't think the district is broken. I'm excited to help. I'm excited to come with new ideas. I am hoping to influence a little bit the support for our special education kids. I think there's a few things they could use, although I'm completely happy with the education my son got. There's a few things we could do for our aides, and I think I can bring light to that. But mostly I'm here to support our teachers and to keep our district financially strong and just moving forward.
Thank you for those remarks, candidates, and that draws our forum to a close. Before we kind of dismiss, I would like to extend a very sincere thank you to all 4 candidates that have joined us, and if you could join me in a round of applause. And also, I'd like to extend a thank you to the wonderful board members of Active Claremont that have helped me put this forum on and have volunteered their time to make this happen. So if you see Active Claremont members in the blue shirts, please thank them. And lastly, and probably most importantly, this probably goes without saying because everybody sitting in this room is obviously very engaged and involved. Please remember to vote. Please look over your ballots diligently. Please do your research and make informed decisions at the polls during this election. As I stated earlier, this whole forum will be online in about 24 to 48 hours. If there's anything you'd like to see again, it will be posted. Thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Can I get a picture of all 4 of you together real quickly?